communicated that obviously there was what the ref interpreted was not actually the case of what happened.
The referee that gave Caitlin Clark a technical exposed.
For a few minutes, it looked like Caitlin Clark had just been handed a punishment that could completely change Indiana's next game. Then, before the controversy could even cool down, the WNBA made a decision that changed everything. During Indiana's 90-86 win over the Chicago Sky on August 8th, Clark was called for a technical foul after making contact with an official while she was being forced toward the baseline and out of bounds. The problem was that this wasn't just another technical on the stat sheet. It was initially recorded as Clark's 8th of the season, and under WNBA rules, 8 technical fouls trigger an automatic one-game suspension. That meant Clark was suddenly facing a mandatory absence against the New York Liberty, one of the biggest matchups on Indiana's schedule, and the timing could hardly have been worse for the Fever. The team had just secured a crucial win, but instead of everyone talking about the performance, the conversation immediately shifted to one controversial whistle. The sequence itself became the center of attention because Clark was moving toward the baseline after contact, lost her balance, and ended up making contact with the official. After the game, Clark said she had already watched the replay and believed the contact was completely accidental. She also said there were no words exchanged with the referee, making it clear that she did not view the moment as an intentional confrontation. But the officials initially saw it differently. The crew chief explained that the official determined Clark had intentionally made contact, which was why the technical was assessed. That explanation instantly raised the stakes because the difference between an accidental collision and intentional contact was no longer just a matter of opinion. It could determine whether one of the Fever's most important players would be available for the next game. Indiana coach Stephanie White was furious about the decision and received a technical herself while arguing the call. White's argument was simple. Clark was already moving out of control near the sideline. An incidental contact in that situation can happen in a fast basketball game. Her frustration added another layer to an incident that was already spreading rapidly among fans. Then came the twist nobody expected. The Fever appealed the technical almost immediately, and the WNBA reviewed the sequence. Less than 2 hours after the game ended, the league rescinded the technical foul. Just like that, the 8th technical disappeared from Clark's record, the automatic suspension disappeared with it, and Clark was cleared to play against New York. That reversal is what transformed a controversial whistle into a much bigger story. Because once the league decided the technical should not stand, the obvious question became, if the video review showed enough to reverse the decision so quickly, why was the technical issued in the first place? That question is now sitting at the heart of the entire debate. And Caitlin Clark herself later acknowledged that the league got the decision right, while also pointing toward a larger issue with the review process. She said more resources, more people, and more video angles could help the league make these decisions more accurately, especially with a replay center expected to provide additional support in the future. So this story is no longer simply about whether Caitlin Clark bumped into a referee. It is about how quickly one whistle can turn into a suspension, how quickly a league can reverse that decision, and how much pressure now exists around every major call involving the Fever star. Because when a technical foul can disappear within hours after triggering an automatic suspension, fans are naturally going to wonder what happens behind the scenes before the final decision is made. And that is where this controversy gets even more interesting.
Caitlin Clark, who accidentally bumped into an official, gets called for a technical foul. Then we have Natasha Cloud, part of the Black Lesbian Mafia, grabbing this official by the hips. Maybe that's why she didn't call it. She likes getting grabbed by the hips by Natasha Cloud. I don't know. Gets grabbed by the hips from Natasha Cloud. Natasha Cloud tries to push her and move her out the way so she can argue with an Indiana Fever player. Absolutely no technical foul. If that's not a double standard, I don't know what it is.
What made this situation explode wasn't simply that Caitlin Clark received a technical foul. It was the timing, the circumstances, and the enormous consequence attached to one whistle. The Fever had just finished a physical game against Chicago, and Clark's night was already filled with the kind of contact she has become accustomed to facing. But when the official's call temporarily pushed her to the suspension threshold, the conversation immediately moved beyond one possession. Fans began asking whether the league's technical foul standard was being applied consistently, especially when an incident involves a player whose every movement is watched by millions. That doesn't prove any bias existed, and there is no verified evidence that the referee intentionally targeted Clark. But the perception alone was enough to ignite another round of debate, because Clark has become one of the most scrutinized players in professional basketball. Every reaction, every argument, every collision, and every whistle is examined almost instantly. In this case, the league's own reversal became the most important piece of the puzzle. The Wnba did not simply leave the call untouched. Officials reviewed the sequence and determined that the technical should be rescinded, meaning Clark's eighth technical was removed and the suspension disappeared. That distinction matters because it separates the facts from the speculation. Online, some fans immediately described the original decision as deliberate or personal, but those claims remain speculation. What is confirmed is that the league reviewed the incident and reversed the penalty. What isn't confirmed is anyone's motive for making the original call. That hasn't stopped the internet from dissecting every frame, though. Slow-motion clips spread rapidly. Commentators argued over the direction of Clark's momentum, and supporters compared the incident with other moments where players made physical contact with officials without receiving the same punishment. The comparisons fueled accusations of inconsistency, but again, individual clips don't automatically establish a league-wide pattern. What they do reveal is how little room for error exists now that every controversial moment can become a viral debate within minutes. There was another important detail that got buried beneath the outrage. The officiating crew actually provided an explanation for the decision. The crew chief said the official believed Clark intentionally made contact. That explanation is significant because it shows the call wasn't officially presented as a random punishment. The referee believed she had seen intentional contact in real time. The league's later reversal simply meant that, after review, the technical no longer met the standard required to remain on Clark's record. And that difference is exactly where the controversy lives. A referee has only seconds to make a judgment during a live game. The league office can slow the sequence down, examine video, and reconsider the evidence. Those are completely different circumstances. But when the consequences include an automatic suspension, fans naturally expect the original decision to be especially careful. That's why the rescission didn't end the debate. In some ways, it created a new one. If the league can identify an error so quickly after reviewing the footage, should similar controversial technical fouls receive the same level of immediate scrutiny before they can affect a player's next game? That question reaches far beyond Caitlin Clark. It touches every player in the league. A technical foul is supposed to control behavior and protect the integrity of the game, not become the story itself. Yet, this incident turned the officiating decision into the headline almost immediately. And for the Fever, that creates another challenge. Their games are already drawing enormous attention, which means every questionable call receives a much larger spotlight than it might have received in previous seasons. Clark isn't the only player affected by that environment either. Teammates, coaches, and opponents are all playing under the same microscope. The difference is that Clark's status makes every controversy travel faster. One disputed whistle can move from the court to social media, from social media to sports television, and from sports television straight to league headquarters in a matter of hours. That's exactly what happened here. The league eventually corrected the decision, but the bigger issue remained. How can officiating improve before the controversy becomes a crisis instead of after it? And that question becomes even more important when you consider what was waiting on Indiana's schedule next. The real controversy began after the technical foul was erased. Once Caitlin Clark was cleared to play, attention shifted from the court to the system behind the decision. The Wnba reviewed the footage, rescinded the technical, and kept Clark from missing the next game. That was a huge relief for Indiana, but it raised a bigger question. How many controversial calls receive the same immediate review? Officials have seconds to judge contact and intent, while the league has replay and multiple angles to examine the moment afterward. And because Clark's popularity is enormous, every questionable whistle involving her can become a major story within minutes. That doesn't mean she deserves special treatment. It means the standard should be consistent for everyone. Some fans saw the reversal as proof the league corrected a mistake, while others felt the original call should never have reached the suspension threshold. There is also no confirmed evidence that the referee personally targeted Clark, despite speculation online. What is clear is that every collision and whistle involving her now receives enormous attention. The penalty was reversed, the suspension disappeared, and Clark was cleared to play. But the bigger challenge for the WNBA is preventing the next controversial decision from creating the same storm. Fans don't expect perfect officiating. They expect consistency. Every questionable call is now replayed, debated, and dissected almost instantly. The facts are already dramatic enough. Clark received her 8th technical, faced a potential suspension, and then had the penalty reversed after review. That's why the reaction was so intense. Clark's job is to keep competing, while the league's job is to make sure the rules are applied consistently. The WNBA corrected this one, but the real test comes with the next whistle.